hit a 52-week high yesterday, actually, up 128% in the year 2015. Let's find out from the CFO, S. Ramnath, what the prospects are for the coming year. He's joining us right now on the show. Mr. Ramnath, good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. Well, it's a fairly decent finish as far as the stock market performance is concerned for 2015. The numbers we have of your first 3 quarters indicates a revenue uptick of 66%. What's the year end likely to be? Is that the pro rata gain, a revenue growth of about 65%?
Yeah, good morning to you all. I would think, as I had mentioned earlier in your in appearing in your shows, that this year we will see a significant improvement in our order book as well as order book growth and revenue, and that has happened. And I think that 60-65% growth that we have had in the first 9 months we will close with that kind of growth for the year December.
Okay. Mr. Ramnath, good morning. Your order book growth has been very strong, as you mentioned, and it stands at almost 5,800 crores as on September 2015. Can you just tell us what kind of visibility do you see over the next 2 to 3 years? How many projects are you L1 in currently, and how many more projects to go?
The order book, as you mentioned, about 5,700 crores has seen a good growth since the time we started in January at about 4,700 odd. And this order book does not include a couple of L1 contracts aggregating to about 2,400 crores. So I think the visibility for the next year and 17 appears to be pretty good. And we are also pursuing several opportunities, mainly in the marine and MRT space, which I think we could be able to convert some of them into orders. So I see reasonable chances of maintaining a good growth next year, or maybe 10 to 15%.
So you mean in terms of revenue, it will only be 10 to 15%?
Yeah, I would think so, minimum, because this year has seen a large growth. Okay. It also depends on the timing of the orders, So we'll start the year with a good order book in December. So next year we could have good visibility going forward. Okay. If in the first quarter we are able to get some major signings, then I think we could revise that target. But at this point in time, it appears that we would see a good growth in 16.
So you mentioned that you mentioned that you're hopeful to get some orders in the marine and in the MRT segments. What could the quantum of those orders be, just ballpark to understand? And what kind of margins do you enjoy, or would one enjoy in these segments?
See, traditionally marine or rather port projects, as we call them, marine or maritime projects, have been our strong point. And I believe we have almost a leadership position in that area. So I think that segment is likely to further grow, because many projects are planning expansions, and also some private projects planned in a big way in south of India are likely to take off in the first quarter of next year. So with these things in mind, I see marine holding on to the traction that we have had in that segment in 2015. MRT, there are several cities coming up with further MRT projects. Nagpur, Lucknow and Ahmedabad already have taken up some projects. Mumbai will have some further. So I expect these projects to also kick in.
Okay. Has the pace of order flow improved? I mean, we always keep speaking about the green shoots of growth. You have your finger on the pulse of infrastructure like no one else has. Are you getting a sense that things picked up in 2015?
Yeah, that I think my views are a little bit different, because people might assume, looking at the order growth and all, things are improving. Of course, there are some underlying changes that are happening in the industry which are welcome. Changes in arbitration law, changes to the way in which they want to award contracts. But apart from roads, I don't see any major growth in other areas. Ports are doing well because mainly they are self-financed. They don't rely on government funding by and large. So I think you will see growth there. MRT projects also are able to attract multilateral funding, so that eases the finance on the state and central governments' financial requirements. So on this, in these areas, you will see reasonable growth coming. But the real challenge for the industry as a whole, infra as a whole and construction in specific, is going to be the capability of the banks to lend to these projects. That remains under cloud yet.
Okay.
Yep, we are looking for, of course, non-bank lenders, but let's see. Actually, your claims, speaking of money, claims were held up at the NHAI end, and even, I believe, some irrigation projects in Andhra Pradesh. How much could be retrieved in the fourth quarter and therefore improve the bottom line?
We have already received the monies from NHAI. That was closed out in first quarter of this year. And we have taken a one-time hit in that of about 120 crores. That is already disclosed in our September financials also. And also in the first quarter, we had already brought that out. As far as the other Andhra projects are concerned, nothing is likely to happen. This is already over this quarter. Let's see if something can happen. We have initiated a dialogue. Let's see what happens. But then things move a bit slowly in these areas.
One final question from my end then. You know, some analysts believe that because now you have completed a lot of your older low margin orders, the margin profile of the company can improve to at least 9 to 10% over the next 2 years. Is that a reasonable assumption?
Yeah, if you are talking of margins, I mean, if you are saying EBITDA margins,
Yes.
certainly this year has been a margin, we have faced margin pressure despite the good uptick in revenues. But next year it will improve. I think I don't want to commit myself to percentages, but in the past we have done upwards of 11%, 11, 12% earlier in 12 and 13. So although I don't want to commit myself, I think going forward in the next 2 years, certainly we expect margins to improve.
Should we expect more write-offs like you took earlier?
I think the era of write-offs are coming to a close. I think.
Okay, that's a positive. Thank you very much, Mr. Ramnath, for joining us with your thoughts. Okay, some green shoots, but bank funding could be a major bottleneck. That's the key takeaway from what Mr. Ramnath had to say. Well, that was